of my hand. But I'm trying not to let it slow me down in my productivity I'm trying to accomplish today. Can't even bend my finger. Hi, welcome to my bubble where we do a little bit of adulting, a little bit of healing, and a little bit of creating. I burned my hand, so I can't move it in the same way that I normally would. But I'm trying not to let it get me down for the day because I still have things to do. And I'm way behind on things that I'm supposed to do, but we're still gonna get it done. That's all that matters. Anyway, as you can see by the title, we're back with another spiritual studies period. Today we're doing a spiritual studies on Sekhmet. That's how I'm gonna say it. So if I'm not saying it right, put the pronunciation in the comments so I know how to say it moving forward. But today we're doing a spiritual studies on Sekhmet, the ancient Egyptian goddess of war and healing. I'm not gonna say she called out to me per se, but her energy caught my attention. Her energy, I was scrolling through videos and I passed a video related to her one time, but the thumbnail caught my attention, but then I saw her again when I was more comfortable, on my way to bed. A lot of the time that's when my other senses are a lot more tapped in, and something in me just said, watch this video. So, but I don't really know anything about her. I did watch the video, but I don't really know anything about her. So since I liked her energy, and I yearned for her energy a little bit, I guess that's what you would say, I decided let's look into her. And that's what we did, which I'm glad I did. In normal spiritual studies fashion, I looked at a couple different websites. But they all, for the most part, said the same thing. So I'm really just going to read the main notes from the first one, because that was the longest and most in-depth. And then I'll just read, certain differential things from the other websites. Eek. So I looked at The Collector, Egyptian Museum, Britannica, Ancient Egyptian Online, and Storyboard That. Assuming Storyboard That is actually the correct website, because you know how autocorrect gets. Sorry. Anyway, let's get into her details, because y'all know I'm a talker and spiritual studies normally be long as fuck. So let's just get into it. Scroll back up. Now, if you do a quick Google search on just Google the name Sekhmet, the first little blurb that will pop up from thecollector.com will show you the details. She's a patron deity of physicians and healers, and at one time was thought to, or at one time was related to spreading disease and curing it. That same little blurb will say, equally feared and worshipped, Lioness Sekhmet was without a doubt one of the most prominent goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon. We love it. We love a divine feminine energy. Here for it. So, here are the notes from thecollector.com, or whatever the website is, because I don't remember offhand. Sekhmet, the bloodthirsty, can be both a loving mother and a ruthless foe. Again, she's the deity of physicians and healers. She was equally feared and worshipped, but she's a prominent Egyptian goddess. Hathor, the goddess of love and music, took several forms. Hathor was most wholesome and protective of the Egyptians. But whenever Hathor became angry, she apparently took the form of Sekhmet, the bloodthirsty, who was a frightening lioness who fed on the blood and fear of her enemies. Right? In Egyptian art, she's depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness, and sometimes skin is painted green, just as Osiris. She carried an Ankh sign on her left hand and a long-stemmed lotus on her right hand. Sidebar, I was like, that's fire. Left hand, what are you receiving? The Ankh symbol. If you know, you know. Look it up. If you don't know, I would say watch I don't know if you'll be able to get it, but high level conversations with 19 Keys. One of the episodes is specific to the symbol of the Ankh. But then the lotus on the right hand, what do you give off? What do you putting out there? The lotus, get it out the mud. I was like, new tattoo idea? No? Okay. Her head was crowned by a large solar disk, which was related to the sun god Ra, and Urius, the serpent associated with Egyptian kingship. Also don't know if that's how you say that word, but let's just keep going. Sekhmet's name comes from the Sekhmet's name comes from the adjective Sakhem, which means powerful or mighty, plus the ending T as a suffix for female names. The more you know. So now you know when you're reading ancient Egyptian things, anything with a T at the end, it's a woman, or a feminine figure, excuse me. Sekhmet is sometimes referred to in Egyptian texts as she before whom evil trembles, mistress of dread, the mauler, or the lady of slaughter. Big purr. She's not to be played with, okay? Born as an aspect of Hathor, but over the time both goddesses evolved into separate deities, mainly because their characters were so different from each other. Which makes sense, Hathor is the loving and nurturing goddess, and Sekhmet is feeding on the blood of people. But duality, But we'll get there to make that make sense. During the Middle Kingdom, Sekhmet became associated with Bastet, the cat goddess, and absorbed the attributes and identity of Mut. I don't want to say Mut, so Mut, the goddess of creation. Her origins are unclear, but she seems to have been born in the Delta area, where lions were rarely seen and thus regarded as mysterious and magical beasts. Right? Okay. Got it. Love it. Memphis theology says Sekhmet was wife to Ptah, the patron god of artisans, and mother of god Nefertum. She was the firstborn of the sun god Ra. That's what they said. During the Middle Kingdom, Ra, Sekhmet, and Nefertum were known as the Memphite triad, and they were adored as a group in Egypt's history when Memphis was the capital of Egypt, and especially during the 18th and 19th dynasties. Now, in relation to bloodthirsty and that being her title, her association, Sekhmet was known to enjoy the taste of blood. Each year on the feast of Hathor and Sekhmet, Egyptians commemorated the saving of mankind by drinking copious amounts of beer stained with pomegranate juice. Surviving records of the feasts mentioned how they did that to worship the mistress and lady of the tomb, the gracious one, destroyer of rebellion, powerful with enchantments. During the celebrations, Sekhmet's statues were dressed in red and facing west. Yeah, for y'all it'll be reversed still. Facing west, while Bastet's statue was dressed in green and facing east. Bastet was considered Sekhmet's counterpart or twin, and during the festival they embodied duality. Bastet was the tame, good goddess, while Sekhmet was the bloodthirsty, chaotic, and dangerous deity of war and love. This bad reputation was due to the myth in which she threatened to wipe out humanity. The only thing that prevented her from wiping out humanity was getting drunk on beer, which had been dyed red as blood, so she thought it was blood. And so during her annual festival, the Egyptians danced, played music, and got inebriated in an attempt to soothe her wrath and keep her calm. The ritual was also intended to prevent the excessive flooding of the Nile, which ran blood red every year, carrying upstream silt. Okay. It was also thought that every time she was unhappy, she would spread disease, right? The Egyptian Book of the Dead has multiple mentions of Sekhmet being a destructive force, but also as the keeper of cosmic balance, aka Mot. Sometimes she tried too hard to keep balance between life and death, that she resorted to extreme practices to control the population. Plagues were often called messengers or slaughterers of Sekhmet, for they were supposed to follow her commands. So, she also it was also believed that even though she spread all these plagues and these diseases, she also had the cure for them. So, she could stop them whenever she wants, and that control the population. Get it? Now, this whole destruction of mankind thing, in Egyptian mythology, there is a tale about the story of Sekhmet, the destruction of mankind, which is the destruction of mankind is at the beginning of a longer myth named Book of the Heavenly Cow. The heavenly cow is supposed to represent Hathor. At the beginning of time, when God lived among men, a rebellion wanted to overthrow Ra, who had become old and grew weaker every day, until humans decided he was not fit to rule over them. So Ra became angry with mankind, took out one of his eyes, and turned it into Sekhmet. He ordered Sekhmet to strike seditious men with a heat close to the suns. Obviously, sun god, Ra. Get it? Sekhmet killed every man and woman in sight for the next few days, but eventually Ra considered it had been enough punishment and decided to spare humanity. But he tried to get control over her, and she wasn't having it. She was doing what she wanted to do. She was killing all the folks because she was angry. Get it? So, to stop her, he got her drunk. Ra got her drunk by pouring 7,000 pounds of beer into the Nile. She drank, thinking the Nile was blood. She drank all of it. She obviously got drunk and she fell asleep. Then when she woke up, she forgot her purpose of killing the people and just, felt satiated. She returned so says the myth, she returned to her father Ra, who welcomed her back, and he rewarded her for her services. Now, I don't get that. That sounds crazy, but I get that in the sense of, I get her in two aspects based off of everything I've said so far. I resonate with her duality, and if we look at her in the context of not Sekhmet versus Bastet, but Sekhmet versus Hathor. I say Hathor. Sekhmet versus Hathor. Hathor being the nice, fluffy, loving, nurturing one, and Sekhmet being the one that I don't even want to associate with the bloodthirsty, but the doesn't take shit, right? I associate with that duality, not just because I'm a Gemini, but that's just the best way I can put it to you. On the surface, and most of the time, you will get the nice me, the fluffy me, the let's have fun, let's talk, let's engage kind of person. But when you make me mad, if you can make me angry, which sidebar, it takes a lot to make me angry nowadays. I've healed a lot. So if you can make me angry, though, all bets are off. You're going to know I'm coming for you. You're going to know that you are the enemy, and I'm going to do my best to not knock you down, but knock you down. So I get her. I get that duality in the sense. I get that. But even just alone, the being so angry or being so wrapped up in your anger that you have no limits and all bets are off, I feel her on that. I feel the evil Gemini twin, she gets that. She's ruthless, okay? She's with the shits. So I'm Team Sekhmet. I get it. Cool? Okay. Let's keep going. Last little bit. Sekhmet was also an Egyptian goddess of healing. In some sources from the Old Kingdom, she was described as the mother of obscure lion deity named Mahes, who was the patron and protector of the pharaoh. In pyramid texts, a corpus of early writing hard to interpret, which I thought was crazy to say, but let's keep going. It is said that the pharaoh himself was conceived by Sekhmet, confirmed by depictions of Sekhmet nursing different pharaohs. Come on, mother. Period. One epithet of Sekhmet was the mistress of life, and of her being capable of spreading disease, so she also had the antidote for, like I said. Her healing virtues were so appreciated and respected that Amenhotep III had hundreds of statues of Sekhmet made for his funerary temple. The statues were supposed to protect the pharaoh in the afterlife should he need medicine or healing. And then, of course, Egyptian healers and physicians also valued her protection, especially those who cared for the king, right? So as much as she is ruthless, she's For her friends and those that she cares for, it was known that like she would dodge, they would be able to dodge the plague, and like they would have all the healing abilities and all those kinds of things. Okay, that's what the collector said. Now from the rest of them, they basically all said the same thing as far as the visuals that she's represented by, all those kinds of things. So let's just keep going. Here's a few differentials or a little bit more detail. Egyptian Museum says Sekhmet equals quote unquote she who is powerful, or quote unquote the one who loves Mat. She was the goddess of the hot desert sun, plague, chaos, war, and healing. She is sometimes seen as the daughter of Geb, earth, and Nut, the sky. She's seen as a protector of pharaohs and led them into warfare. When she's in a calmer state, she would take the form of a household cat goddess, Bastet. So it's like, some stories say that Sekhmet is the angry version of the nicer Hathor. But like it said, eventually the stories, like the characters became their own people. So Sekhmet, she's angry when she's angry, but when she's calm, she's a loving little cat goddess, Bastet. So again, the duality of Sekhmet facing west, Bastet facing east. Either way, there's duality to her, depending on, no matter which story you're looking at. Ancient Egyptians believed that Sekhmet had a cure for every problem. To stay on her good side, they offered her food and drink, they played music for her, and they burned incense. The people would whisper their prayers into the ears of the cat mummies and offer them to Sekhmet. They believed it would be a direct connection to the deities and that their prayers would be answered. Period. Practice however you practice. Okay? According to Britannica, Sekhmet is also spelled Sekhmet rather than E, it's an A. In the Egyptian religion, she's a goddess of war and the destroyer of the enemies of the sun god, Ra. Well, Britannica says Re, R-E instead of R-A, but sun god, okay? She's associated with disease and with healing and medicine. Like other fierce goddesses in the pantheon, she was called the Eye of Ra, or Re, again, with Britannica. And also, Britannica says she was the companion of the god Ptah and worshipped principally in Memphis. Obviously, I'm assuming Memphis is one of the regions in Egypt, not Memphis, Tennessee. Duh. Ancient Egyptian Online said she's one of the oldest known Egyptian deities. Bless. Her name derived from the Egyptian word Sakhem, again meaning power or might, which is often translated as quote-unquote powerful one or she who is powerful. Her seated statues show her holding the Ankh of life. When she's shown striding or standing, she usually holds a scepter formed from papyrus, the symbol of northern or lower Egypt, suggesting she was associated primarily with the north. Some scholars argue that the deity was introduced from Sudan, south of Egypt, where lions are more plentiful. Okay. Sekhmet was represented by the searing heat of the midday sun, which is why she is sometimes also called Nesert, or the flame. And she was quote-unquote a terrifying goddess. But her friends could avert the plague and cure disease, like I said. Sekhmet was mentioned multiple times in the spells of the Book of the Dead as both a creative and destructive force. Above all, she was protector of Mat, aka balance or justice, and, quote, the one who loves Mat and who detests evil. Period. She's also known as the Lady of Petulance and the Red Lady, indicating her alignment with the desert. And it's thought that she could send plagues against whoever angered her. In another version of the myth, Ptah is the first thing she saw when she wakes up from being drunk, so she instantly falls in love with him. And their union, creation and destruction, created Nefertum, which represents healing, and established Mat, balance or justice. Get it? See how it all goes together? 2 plus 2 is 4. The statue of Sekhmet was dressed in red and facing west, while Bastet was dressed in green and facing east. Bastet sometimes was considered to be Sekhmet's counterpart, or twin, depending on the legend, again. Excuse me. And in festival, they embodied duality, central to Egyptian mythology. Duality, I get it. Divine feminine. Love her. Here for it. Okay? Last thing that site said was she's closely associated with kingship and often described as mother of Mahes, who's the lion god who was a patron of the pharaoh. Real quick, last site storyboard that said Sekhmet is the goddess of war, battle, and fire. She is the daughter of Ra and another incarnation of the goddess Hathor. In many traditions, Hathor and Sekhmet separate into two different beings just because of their characters and how they're so different. Sekhmet was also thought to bring natural disasters, and the ancient Egyptians often held festivals with lots of alcohol to keep her inebriated, therefore appeased. Right? See how it's all basically the same thing. Here was why I kept that in there. Storyboard says that the festivals were often held at the end of battle or war to keep the bloodshed from beginning again. Which makes sense. Makes perfect sense to me. So yeah, that's what I learned about Sekhmet. I am very much here for her, and I resonate with her energy, and I'm here for the synchronicities in it. 7 is a very important number for me. She drank 7,000 pounds of beer. She has, for many different reasons, according to many different stories, there's duality to her. There's duality to me. It's multiple people have seen my duality. My mother recognized it very, very young. Other people have recognized it very, very young. No, scratch that. Other people have recognized it, period, including my siblings, friends. People just recognize the duality to me. The name Naori came from my roommate recognizing the duality to me. And just like I said, the not taking no shit, like, because eventually it comes to a point where we take a lot of shit. We're connected, right? We can take a lot of shit and we can handle a lot. But once you pass a certain line, it's like all bets are off. And clearly I got to show you that I'm not the one to be fucked with. So, and then again, just like Ra had sent her out and was trying to pull her back, and she's like, nah, fuck that, because how dare they disrespect you. It's very much that for me too. I don't give a fuck. Like, until I prove my point, I need my point to be blatantly clear. Like, they're gonna be like, you're doing too much, and I'm gonna do 3 times that, because don't be like that. Now that this is my reaction to, you kept pushing that button, so now you kept poking the bear, so now the bear's up. Okay, don't be mad now. But that's just me. That's why I get her. I resonate. I'm here for it. So yeah, that's what we learned in spiritual studies. Again, this video is not short, but spiritual studies is never short, because how do you learn something in a short amount of time, you know? If you made it to the end of the video and you don't know me, hi. My name is Naori. Stick around, you love it here. Duh. Embrace being a star. Subscribe. Follow my socials. I'm posting twice a week. The month of June is almost over. That's crazy, right? Y'all should be getting the Gatsby party video, because we're throwing my grandmother a Gatsby party. I'm halfway through my 30-day gym challenge for June. Quick little update, not gonna lie, I've skipped 2 days. I feel bad about it, but I'm allowing myself grace and holding myself accountable at the same time. I have a solo date coming up for y'all in July. Don't know when. I've been back in my creative bag. So Saturday, y'all are going to watch me create some of the dance stuff that I'm working on. But yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.